Annunciation Radio presents Say Yes to Life with Peter Range, Senior Fellow for Strategic Initiatives at the Center for Christian Virtue.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Say Yes to Life, where we learn to embrace our Catholic faith in the secular world. I'm your host, Peter Range, Senior Fellow for the Center for Christian Virtue, and welcome to show number 460 as we continue the fight for every single human life, born, preborn, and yours in our world today. On today's show, I'm tremendously excited to welcome David Henley. David is the headmaster of St. Michael the Archangel Chesterton Academy. He earned a BS in middle childhood education with concentrations in mathematics and social studies from the Franciscan University of Steubenville and holds a master's degree in education from the University of Findlay. Prior to becoming headmaster, David served as a middle school teacher and principal at Our Lady of Consolation Catholic School, and later as an instructional coach and dean of students at St. Michael's School. In his current role, David is leading the preparation for the opening of St. Michael the Archangel Chesterton Academy this coming fall. His work focuses on integrating the Chesterton Academy model into the St. Michael the Archangel's existing preschool through 8th grade program while establishing the network's guiding motto, Cultura Vitae, Latin for culture of life. David and I are going to be talking about his life, how the Chesterton Academy will build the culture of life, and more in just a minute. But first, let's go ahead and take 180 seconds around Ohio and the nation to talk about what's happening in the pro-life movement and the news. First, Planned Parenthood has officially been defunded from Life News. Planned Parenthood has voluntarily dismissed its lawsuit challenging a defunding provision in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, making a major victory for pro-life advocates who have long sought to end taxpayer support for the nation's largest abortion company. Now, this is just for a year. However, it is a great victory and hopefully something that the Congress can do in perpetuity in the years to come. Secondly, out of Indiana, they are on the move from live action. The Indiana Senate passed a bill last week that would curtail illegal abortion pill distribution in the state by allowing private lawsuits against those who manufacture, prescribe, or distribute the pill. Senate Bill 236, the Anti-Chemical Abortion Pill Trafficking Act, passed by the Senate 35-10 on January 27th. So this is incredibly good news out of Indiana, who already does a lot to ban abortions in their state. But we know with the availability of the chemical abortion pill that abortions are still happening across the country. And actually, there's a new group just came out today that is putting pressure on the Trump administration to return some very basic rules when it comes to the distribution of the abortion pill. So stay tuned for that. All right, third, the Essential Summit is right around the corner. So the 2026 Essential Summit in Columbus, Ohio is going to be Friday, October 3rd this year. Don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity featuring Frank Turek and backed by popular demand, Dr. Rosaria Butterfield. I'm already looking forward to this fall's premier faith event in Ohio to restore faith in America. All right, I might have to double check on that date. But anyway, with all that being said, you can find out more at essentialsummit.org. All right, now it's time for David Henley. David is the headmaster again of St. Michael the Archangel Chesterton Academy, which will be opening up this fall. David, welcome to Say Yes to Life.
Peter, thanks for having me. I have to say, I love the little bit of intonation when you said the Franciscan University of Steubenville, because when you're on a Catholic talk show, it's kind of like the Ohio State University, of Catholic colleges. So I appreciated that.
Well, I was just talking to a Franciscan grad today, and, I'm so impressed by the individuals who go to that school, come out on fire for their faith. I'm watching Father Dave Pavanka's metanoia, Father Dave Pavanka, of course, leading Franciscan University of Steubenville right now. People come out on fire for the faith. So it is the Franciscan University of Steubenville. I wish I could say that about the John Carroll University where I went, but I digress. I love John Carroll, but we got some work to do. All right. My people in Cleveland, I love you. Don't hate me for saying that. All right, David, first, let's just get to your story. Where are you from? Tell us about your faith, family, and your professional journey, if you wouldn't mind.
Of course. So I'm originally from Loudonville, Ohio, which is a small tourist town, about an hour and a half south of Cleveland, hour and a half north of Columbus. So in the middle of nowhere, people basically know us for the Mohican State Forest or the Amish. So I grew up there. I'm one of 7. And I was homeschooled all the way through. We did Seton homeschooling. And that was because for my mother, she had gone to Catholic school in Missouri before moving to Ohio. And an issue for her was that she saw more of her classmates lose their faith than retain it by going through this school. And so when she moved out to Ohio, she met my dad, got married, started having kids. And I would say she probably wasn't in the strongest place of her faith when they got married originally. And I always joke by the names of the kids that you can see their reversion in faith, because it's Ross, Kristen, Rachel, David, Paul, John, Matthew. And so you start with Ross and you're like, what on earth is happening here? It's before Friends even came out. So where did we even get this? And then you get to the, all right, Rachel, Dave, all right, we got some Old Testament names. And then you get Paul, John, Matthew. You're like, all right, New Testament, sweet, we've come full circle. And so she had put Ross and Kristen into public school. And then I think when he was in 5th grade and she was in 2nd grade, she ended up deciding to homeschool. And so we were in a small town, no Catholic school. The Catholic population was very small. We had maybe 8 altar servers at any given time. And, 4 of them were my siblings and I, and 2 of them were our cousins. And so, there's not a good option for Catholic schools. Voucher system wasn't up and running. So she decided to homeschool us to ensure that we received a strong Catholic education. Moving on from there, I decided to go to Franciscan University of Steubenville, where I got my degree in education. I finished up that and then took a job at Our Lady of Consolation School, where I was teaching math and social studies. I taught there for 4 years and started to work on my master's in education from the University of Findlay with the idea that I'd become an administrator. That took off a little bit sooner than I thought, as a great mentor and leader, Mr. Brian Gerber, who was the principal at the time at Our Lady of Consolation, let me know that he needed to step down and considered me strongly for that position of principal at Our Lady of Consolation. So after teaching for 4 years, I ended up going and being principal there. And my last day of teaching was actually March 13th of 2020, which was the day that they sent us home for COVID. And then when I came back in the fall, I was the principal. So I was there for 2 years. I had met my wife shortly after moving to this area. She was involved with the Findlay St. Michael young adult groups and youth groups and things like that. So when I'd come over, I started to volunteer with that, and I got to know her, and we ended up getting married, living in Findlay, where she's lived since she was 2 or 3. And so when the opportunity came to move over to St. Michael's School, it being our parish and where we lived, it made sense. So I moved over as an instructional coach and then moved into the role of Dean of Students. I was Dean of Students for a couple of years, working with the principal. And one day, Father Adam walked into my office and said, "So would you consider being the headmaster of our coming Chesterton Academy?" And I said, "Father, I thought you might ask that. Yes, I'll go wherever you would like me to go. I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'm here at your service." And that's where we got to us here today. My family, like I said, I met my wife here in Findlay. We have 3 children, 4, 2, and 3 months old. Our 4-year-old Luke, he is about 200 feet from me at any given time during the school day, as he's in our kindergarten readiness program. My wife teaches kindergarten here at school, and her classroom is about 200 feet in the other direction. And then I have a wonderful 2-year-old who's absolutely crazy. Her name is Noah. And then I have baby Samuel, who again is 3 months old.
Oh, it's beautiful. What a tremendous witness to saying yes to life. And that's what we need, I think, in the church. I always talk about vocation crisis in the church. And one of my first responses, I had Father David Kidd on, I think, just last week. And it's just like, we just need to have babies first and foremost. And the more babies we have, the more vocations we can come to. And we'll have great vocations like Father Adam Hertzfeld. It's hard to say no to him if he comes up and tells you, "Hey, do you want to be janitor of the Chesterton Academy?" Be like, "Yes, Father, whatever you want." But glad that you're the headmaster, especially with all that experience that you've had. Curious with your wife, if it was love at first sight, or did you have to win her over a little bit?
I would say probably had to win her over a little bit. I think the first time I met her was a young adult. We were just playing pickup basketball. She elbowed me in the face because I was pretty aggressive on defense, and she didn't like that. And so, I was struck by love maybe right off the bat, but, might have taken some time.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, you're going to be heading up this new Chesterton Academy in Findlay, Ohio again. First, well, tell us what exactly is a Chesterton Academy, and then why did St. Michael's Parish choose to establish one there in Findlay?
Yeah, so Chesterton Academies, they started in 2008 up in Minnesota. There was just a group of parents who were seeing what was going on in the world, and they decided to do something different. So they got together and they started a high school. They decided to make it a Catholic classical academy with the namesake of G.K. Chesterton, who they looked on as a great example of lay leadership and faith and virtue, and they created this school. Now, originally, they had just planned to create their single school. But as time went on, other people started to look at what they were doing and came to them and said, hey, can you help us out? We'd like to do this too. And so around 2012, give or take, they started to kind of McDonald's franchise this. So it went from just a single school to going, okay, well, we're going to start helping other people create these schools. And so that gets to they were doing that, maybe on a smallish scale for about 8 years, somewhere around then, that until 2020, where it's really started to take off. And they now have 72 schools throughout the United States and through the world. I believe there's about 10 international schools currently. And next year, it'll be crossing or approaching 90 schools.
Wow.
And so for them, they're using the classical model. So looking at those things that are tried and true, looking at, the Greeks and the Romans in the classical era, and then going up through modern history, all of it utilizing our faith as that thing that intertwines that the salvation history of where we were during those times in the ancient world and where we are today. And then looking at our parish, why we decided to go with this model. A Catholic high school in Findlay, Ohio has been a discussion for a long time. I believe we're the only parish in Hancock County. And so we haven't had a Catholic high school. However, I think we also were aware that just trying to compete with the traditional schools, just opening a traditional school wasn't going to work. You're not seeing a lot of Catholic schools opening at this time. So going in and just trying to build another traditional school and going big right off the bat was not something that was going to be an option. But then with St. Wendland, the closest Catholic high school closing, as well as the expansion of Ed Choice, that really gave us the avenue of saying, okay, we have a clear gap that needs to be filled. How can we fill it? So we looked at Chesterton, and with it being designed as a smaller and sustainable model of a high school, we looked at that and said, that's something we can do. It holds and maintains our faith, and then it's designed in a way that we can build that here, and it can be successful.
That's so important today because I think, one of the work that we do at the Center for Christian Virtue is, we're trying to reform public education to a certain extent, but also help parishes and churches start their own kind of Christian education models, such as the Chesterton Academy. But when you look at, just for example, the sexual education curriculum that there is in public schools, that alone is enough to, invite parents to reconsider sending their kids to the public education system. I mean, what we're doing right now is just training kids to vote like Romans, if you will. We're sending them to Caesar, and they're voting like Romans. Unfortunately, we've seen that in so many different ways. I could go down a rabbit hole with that, but let's dig in a little bit more with classic education. What exactly does that entail? So you mentioned you're reading some of the classics. What does the classroom look like? Is it different than a normal, high school classroom? And why is that kind of important? And how's the Catholic faith, again, how is that integrated into this particular model, the Chesterton model?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so for classical education, the term comes from the classical period. So we had the Greeks who started us off strong in that the burst of culture and literature and art and philosophy and mathematics and sciences, and then carrying on to the Romans. But then the term gets very broad, right? So it's not just we're not just studying Romans and Greeks and then going, okay, nothing else exists beyond this. No, it becomes more broad. And so classical education then looks at progressing on from there. What are the other works in literature and philosophy and theology that have stood the test of time to say this is truth, this is goodness, this is beauty, and so the curriculum is developed around that. And then with the educational style, classical education takes a focus on three different things. It's called the trivium, okay, which means the place where three roads meet. And those three things are, it seeks to teach grammar. And so that's the very foundational pieces. That's the knowledge piece. Okay, that might look like sentence structure. That's what we think of with grammar. It might look like math facts. It might be memorizing poetry, right? It's just the fact piece. And that moves on to logic, where we start to understand that knowledge. Okay, so we're taking what we've learned, we're learning logic, we're learning how to take it apart and understand it and make sense of it. And then beyond that, we move into the rhetoric, which now is we know the things, we know why the things work, and now we can integrate that into our lives and communicate that out to those around us. I think in education, a lot of times people get stuck on, they're like, oh, we've just been teaching to the test, right? And so they're teaching to the test, and what often happens is you get stuck in those earlier phases of education where you're focused just on the knowledge piece, or maybe you get a little bit of the understanding. But if your goal is simply to pass a test, okay, tests are imperfect measures of something that's truly immeasurable. You can't truly measure, your wisdom. And so if your ultimate goal is just try to game that test and understand it, you get stuck on, oh, I just know all this knowledge, and we don't move on into the understanding and into the wisdom aspects of it, where we know the truth, goodness, and beauty of the world. We understand it and we're able to communicate it. Then I think that's something we find lacking in education today, and something that this model looks to correct. And then what it looks like in the classroom, how we move from that knowledge into the wisdom. Oftentimes we're going to use something called Socratic seminar. So that is based off of Plato's writings for his teacher Socrates, and those writings would often be Socrates prompting and guiding those people he's in conversation with to come from a point of their current understanding and to get to the truth, right? And so we're using that trivium to building a base of knowledge, to understand that knowledge, and to be able to get to the truth of it, guiding students using the Socratic seminar. And then another great aspect of classical education is integrated curriculum. And so rather than looking at each subject as its own domain, we're rather looking at it through the scope of it's all interconnected. It's, in the first year at Chesterton Academies, we are looking at the ancient writers. We're looking at Homer and Virgil while we're studying the New Testament and the Catechism, while we're looking at pre-Socrates and intro to Plato and Aristotle, things like that. So we're starting there. We're connecting all of those things. So when they go from one class to the next class, everything is connected. They have prior knowledge, and so they're more readily able to learn and grasp that information. And then each year progresses into early medieval periods, into the high Middle Ages, and then getting into the more modern world, where each year everything is interconnected, allowing the students to grasp it. And then we get to Catholic classical education, right? So classical education is looking for truth, goodness, and beauty. And so it's connecting all of that curriculum and everything that's going on. But then with Catholic classical education, we understand that the fulfillment of that truth, the fulfillment of that goodness, the fulfillment of that beauty is God. And so that's the foundation of our education. So whether we are in art class and we're in the art history portion, you're understanding art in the scope of salvation history and our faith, or music, similar with that in history. All of the subjects are interconnected, and we aren't just left with, oh, well, now I went to math class and now I went to my history class and there's no connection. Rather, we say, nope, all of this is an interconnected, web leading us to God.
Gosh, there's so much there, so much that I like, but it sounds like a really a curus personalis approach. It's a care for the whole person. It is helping them understand that they're developing their gifts and talents, not so they can go out and kind of get a good job and then retire in Florida when they're 50, but they're developing this understanding and appreciation so that they have fear of the Lord, so that they can grow kind of in holiness, so they can be the saints that they're called to be. And I think that's something we've been missing in Catholic education for many years now. So I pray for great success upon the Chesterton Academy. Let's talk about how it's striving to foster a culture of life, because again, something that's sorely missing, I think, in our Catholic education system today. And when we say culture of life, what does that mean to you or to the school?
Yeah, so you read it off in the introduction for us, Chesterton Academy, for their accreditation. So basically, for us to show to the school network that we are striving to meet their standards, they label it with the motto Cultura Vitae, right, which is the culture of life. So how perfect, it's like I planned this for you, but Chesterton Academy did this for us. So that is how they look at it and prove that we are living out what they desire for the school. And so that is in the grander scale of things and also down to the small scale. So we think oftentimes of building a culture of life where we're pro-life advocacy, right? And so we go down to the March for Life in Columbus. And so this past year, even though we don't have students officially in the building as Chesterton Academy, our 8th grade students in our K-8 building, they went down, a handful of them, and I went down with them. When we went down as well, there were at least 2 other Chesterton Academies in Columbus, the Dayton Chesterton Academy of St. Joseph, and then the Chesterton Academy of St. Benedict from the Columbus area. They were both down there as well. So being great representatives, they were a little more organized. They were all chanting and everything in Latin. And I was like, well, we'll get there one day. But so, we're doing those large scale things, within the school. We're planning and developing our understanding of what it means to be pro-life. So different wonderful tools that we have within the diocese. For instance, we have the Culture Project. So looking to coordinate having them come down and doing their pro-life talks and their apologetics talks for our students, so we're able to develop. But then it also needs to trickle into just the everyday life, right? The culture of life is not just us going out and advocating for those pro-life issues, but it's an everyday aspect. And so you see that we have things like our house system, where students are able to grow in virtue, understanding the importance of mentorship, where we're mixing, seniors with freshmen. And so they're able to lead and help foster, camaraderie in the smaller culture groups, rather than having any kind of like, oh, I'm a senior, you're a freshman, we don't have anything to do with you. No, we have a role in our life. And when you're older, you take others under your wing. We do like parents development sessions or events and things like that to make sure that it's not just the students who are developing. It's not just the students who need to be bought into this, but it's the families who also need to take part of it, because the parents are the primary educators of their children. It's not simply that we've chosen to do this great program that's going to create your saints. No, it's that you've chosen to strive for this holiness for your children. You're partnering with us, and we are helping you as we are able in that journey, right? We aren't this entity where, we're just churning out. We're a factory of saint builders. We can't do that. We are working with parents collaboratively. And then you just see even just little things like how we assign homework. And, on Friday nights, we only assign what can be done on a Friday night, so that on Sunday you can actually spend Sunday with your family, or not scheduling tests on Mondays, because any good student who's trying to succeed should be studying the night before for a test. So if we schedule it on Monday, guess what they need to do? Study on Sunday. So we don't do that. So all from like I said, from the grand scale, the big scale things, all the way down to the little things of, hey, we want to actually make sure we try to let you be a family on Sundays.
David, I love that. And if you're just joining us, we've been speaking with David Henley. He's the headmaster of the St. Michael the Archangel Chesterton Academy, opening this fall in Findlay, Ohio. We only got a couple minutes left in the show. I want to make sure first, David, that we get out. Where's the school going to be located in Findlay? And what is the first year going to even look like?
Perfect. Yeah, so the school is going to be in our current K-8, preschool through 8 building. The school building is large enough for about 600 students. We currently have around 450. So we're maneuvering around different rooms, and that will allow us to grow into our initial vision, which is one class, each class being capped off at 20 students to ensure that the class sizes aren't so large that students get neglected. So that smaller class size gets them the attention that they need. And we're able to grow that into a full-fledged, freshman through senior high school within our own building. And if the Lord blesses us abundantly, and we have to problem solve from there, we're working proactively on that, but we have space for what we need right now. And then looking at this coming year, we will have freshmen primarily, and we will have offerings for some sophomores where we can do a modified curriculum to allow them to get the Chesterton experience. So we're going to start with the freshman and sophomore class and then start walking that in until we get freshmen through seniors.
That's awesome. Where can people go to a website to learn more or maybe even donate to the mission?
Yeah, so it would be findlaychesterton.org, and that will have any enrollment information. If I explain things inadequately, Chesterton has some great documentation on there, so you're able to read through what we're about. And my lights just went off. You're able to look at any information on Chesterton or our school specifically, and then there is a donate portion there as well, where it'll go through our parish, but you can just simply put in a note to say Findlay Chesterton, and that'll get to us.
Well, praise the Lord, David. Thank you so much for engaging in this mission, for your yes to life, to educate the next generation. This is how we build a culture of life. It's not just passing laws, which are incredibly important, but it's teaching the true, the good, and the beautiful, starting at the earliest of ages. And parents, if you're listening to the show, that's our job. That's our primary job, is to get our kids to heaven. So start there, and then send your kids to the Chesterton Academy. I think they're going to get a great education there in Findlay, Ohio. So David, thanks again for coming on to Say Yes to Life today.
Thanks, Peter, for having me and for serving the mission.
Amen. God bless you, and can't wait to talk to you all next week on Say Yes to Life. In the meantime, continue the fight, because in the end, thanks be to Jesus Christ, we win. Take care, everybody.